Super League spotlight shining so bright. Interviews and news, come join the hype.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Super League Spotlight. Rona, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am busy, but I am really good and I'm excited to be here again. We have missed a whole host of stuff this last couple of weeks. Like, what has gone on in the league?
Well, I think it's not so much we've missed it, like we've caught everything, but
Yeah,
it's like there wasn't a chance to come up for breath to talk about these things because one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And then, by the way, there was games played, and then the GB men beat Greece, and then
I
so
know.
it's been mad. It's been as mad as it feels in school, with everything that's going on. But I think it's quite exciting as well for the league. The things we talked about at the start of the season, and then obviously when we had Emily on a few weeks ago, and even when you think about how much has changed in the landscape since then, yeah, it's been fun as a bystander. Potentially not if you're as deep into organisations and stuff as others are, but for us, lots of talking points on the old WhatsApp.
Absolutely. We've had injuries, we've had head coach changes, we've had signings, we've had shock results. I mean, as I say, where do you start? Let's start with Caledonia, somewhere you know very, very well. Lost their first two games this season. Now they've come and won their next two. Um, Still waiting for that win in Europe, though.
They are maybe tomorrow night. Who knows? They host the Lithuanians, Neptunus tomorrow. I think the two games that they've won, you would be expecting them to win those games. But I think as the league has shown us, and it's just towards the end of November, nothing is a certain, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But I think they've had two really good convincing wins. I was down commentating the game yesterday with Grant, and they looked where you'd expect them to be. Their defense was looking pretty sharp. They were working well. Donny pointed out to me they always had a teenager on court. So there was always
Nice.
either Kerry, Alex, or Emma on court at any given time. And also there were several times in the game I noticed that, they had 5 Scots on the floor, they had 4 Scots on the floor, which is really good for that pathway and coming through. So I think there's lots going on at Gladiators. There's been several podcasts on the men's side, purely about almost the Gladiators and everything that's going on there. But I think the women, to get these wins under their belt, will help the team in the confidence. Obviously, Maya Price is out. Delaney Byrne was out yesterday, but they have brought in Ree Harris. She looked like a big physical player yesterday and really nice presence, some good athleticism. So I think lots of interesting things going on there. But I think, yeah, head coach Chantel Handy will be happy to have some wins under her belt. I think it's good for the team, the morale as well. They've been away from home for so long. It was Grant was pointing out, it was 56 days since we'd last called a home game because their only other home games have been their Euro Cup fixtures.
Wow.
So that's a long time to be off on the road, especially when you're travelling around Europe and down south, and if results aren't going your way.
Uh, Someone mentioned schedule, and I think we mentioned to Emily a few weeks ago. Like Newcastle have only played 2 league games so far this season. I think Nottingham are up to 5 or 6, and
Yeah,
it just seems a bit topsy turvy.
it does, and who knows? Maybe it's just flung in a washing machine and see what you pull out, or it's a wee raffle at the end of the season. I don't know. I'm sure there's logic behind the availabilities, different things, but yeah, you would like to hope for a bit more continuity, especially when you see the men's teams playing and how regularly they play each other. And sometimes it's the flip where it's like I feel like the Eagles pretty much just live up the road. They always seem to be up there playing the Gladiators. So I guess there's two ways to look at it, but definitely I think it'd be great to see the women playing more and playing each other more, because then that would generate more home games for everyone.
Just while we're talking about the Caledonia Newcastle men's rivalry, Newcastle seem to have the upper hand at the minute. Just putting that out there.
The upper two hands,
Yeah.
not going to be about the bush. It's not going well, but changes on their coaching staff as well. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to be watching from the sidelines, that's for sure.
So Caledonia have a big matchup this weekend against Manchester, again on the road, unfortunately for them.
Yeah.
But that's a huge game. Looking at, obviously we'll come on to Manchester in a little bit, but looking at where Manchester are right now, that looks like that's a massive game.
It does, and I think, like you said, with Manchester and how their results have gone recently, they're really looking for that bounce back win. Erin Jones, EJ, who played with Caledonia 2 seasons ago, she's coming up against her own team. I actually heard her on some of the socials. I think it was this Kaz, talking about that. So she's looking forward to seeing the old program, like the programming where it is at now, and some of the players, because obviously played alongside Taya, Chantel, Erin, Robin, etc. So that'll be a good matchup. I think Manchester have a big roster, and I think sometimes that's not ideal because you've got a lot of players there who are definitely deserving of court time and are capable of court time, but trying to bleed lots of players in all the time can be quite challenging. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes for both teams. And again, like you say, Gladiators back on the road, but they've got to prove as well. And they did at Nottingham that they can go on the road and get big wins when they need to.
So yeah, Manchester, as you say, Erin Jones, but they have lost their last two against Sheffield and, more surprisingly, Newcastle.
Oh, you seem surprisingly. I wasn't surprised at all.
Were you not?
No, I was.
Oh right, okay. I was going to say I had that down as
that's got good old Scottish sarcasm there.
yeah.
But I think, with a coaching change as well, you're like, okay, how's the team going to be? They're on the road, they're going to be feeling it. But I actually mentioned it yesterday in Homes. I feel like the team look really bought in. It looks like they've put themselves behind Chloe coming in, and that's a tricky role to be in, to be that sort of player coach. I noticed she didn't actually play at the weekend. She seemed to be fully suited up coaching. And I think they played well. They did really well at isolating players. They looked to exploit Manchester's weaknesses and playing their game. Tierra Hodges again went out and does what she does with her double doubles. But I think for me, Jada Gwynn was a big standout there. She had like 8 more assists than she does on average. And they seem to be playing some really nice team basketball, moving the ball around. Court time is maybe split slightly differently compared to how it has been, or that could just be the way things worked out with fouls, and Abby Lowe ended up fouled out. Kendall Currents as well coming in, playing big minutes compared to normal, pushing up her points. So I think actually it's shown that there's versatility within that team. I think so often with the Eagles we can look to Tierra Hodges because she does produce, but there's more sort of facets to that team, and maybe we'll see that under a different coach.
Yeah, I think Lauren Segi had a bit of foul trouble as well, so she didn't play as many minutes as she normally would. Something I mentioned on Twitter with the day of the game, I can't remember, it was a Saturday, Sunday. Rachel Bland hasn't played yet this season. New coach. She plays 11, 12 minutes. And I think the plus and minus was up to 14 at one point, by far and away the biggest plus minus on Newcastle's roster. She does a lot of things that goes like not unnoticed, but not on the stat sheet, let's say. And I would be interested to find out why she maybe hasn't had any minutes yet this season, and whether that is a talking point or whether I'm just kind of clutching at straws to find something. Maybe
the Bland top you've got behind you. Yeah, it's like, what's going on there? But no, I think it is interesting. There could have been injuries. There could have been, it didn't fit within the system. Maybe they've tweaked the system a little bit as what they're going to do, how they're going to run things. It could have been availability with someone at training. It's so hard, isn't it, when you don't know what's going on behind the scenes? Or it could just have been a purely coaching thing, like Coach Newberry didn't see her in that rotation at that given time, whereas Chloe sees it from a different way. But I was counting up, and I think we're up to sort of 5 female coaches in the league, because you've got Caledonia, Nottingham, Cardiff, Hatters, Eagles. Is that right?
Just nearly at 50% then.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's great for the game in that respect as well. Coaches and opportunities, and I really hope I've not forgotten one. But yeah, so I think lots of positives, and well done to Coach Gaynor going and getting that win. But I think sometimes that's when you're at your most deadly, isn't it? When people are maybe a bit like that, like, oh, it's a coaching change, they're on the road, Manchester are stacked, Coach Krimesh Patel, and then they come out and they smack you in the face and they take it from there. And that's kind of what they did, isn't it? They came out and they pushed a lead and they pretty much held on to it. And Newcastle have such a small rotation that I kind of feel like if they can burst that open in the sort of the first quarter and then hold on to an extent, and then they sort of pushed it again in the fourth. I think they took the fourth by about 2 points. But that worked for them, whereas Manchester maybe needed to chip away more at trying to push Newcastle, get them into more foul trouble, run their legs, maybe try and run longer offences to try and tire them out on the defensive end. But dead easy for me to say, sitting at my Skittles watching it.
Chloe Gaynor obviously has been around Newcastle for 4 years now. She's actually done some coaching stuff with my daughter Eva. And Eva's like, I reckon it was her recommendation, her reference that got Chloe the job, I reckon.
Okay, yeah, so because she was decent, she was good. So we'll see
Yeah,
Eva
yeah.
up next week, will we, as a wee return.
So Newcastle have the visit of London on Saturday. A game probably different to the Manchester game where they're not expected to win. This one they probably are expected to win. We'll come on to London in a little bit, but yeah, a different pressure there.
It will be first game on the home court. There will be various things, but at the same time, first game on the home court, sorry, with a new head coach.
Yeah.
But I think they can only go out and play their game, and they need to have enjoyed and celebrated having the win like they did, but also be like, they probably have standards and expectations of themselves. Like, no, people shouldn't be that surprised. Like, that is where we want to be. That's where we think we're operating at. And we need to now back that up because, again, it was shown on the Gladiators men's side where they went and had an amazing one in Europe, but then they dropped a game straight after. So it's like, how can that be? So it's kind of like that. You need to go and have a solid win, and then you want to back it up. So they'll want to go out and prove a point. London's still winless. So like you say, it should be expected, but Eagles should also remember that they were seen potentially as underdogs the previous week, and look what happened. So you need to go into every game, and you need to always be giving it like your 110%. Like, there's no easy game.
Yeah. So we mentioned London winless. They are still winless. 41-point defeat to Durham, 40 points to Nottingham. Again, big margins of defeat. I thought a few weeks back when they played Leicester, I thought they put up a really good fight and they seem to be building. I don't know if that's progressed on from that stage yet.
I think they are building and they are doing well. Like, and they do well on the socials. Like, if you were just to pick up the London socials, you'd be like, okay, they're doing well. They have nice clips, they have nice highlights. But I mean, suppose anyone can have them. But at the same time, I think they are developing, but so are other teams. Like, every team's growing, every team's developing, and I think potentially the growth and how quickly other teams are developing is ahead of where London are at. And with the group of players they've got, who, there is experience there, but maybe not from such high levels or such big court time, or when they've brought them up from the NBL one, so they're having to learn to step up as players are learning when they come back from college. So, potentially if you kept that same group for a couple of years, we could be having a totally different conversation. But in the here and now, I think the way other teams have signed, the way other teams are playing, competing, I think, they're going to have to do a lot of work to get themselves up there, and also to build their team and to get an identity in how they want to play.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are they going to win a game this season?
I think so.
Okay.
I think they'll take one, maybe two. You know what it's like. I mean, we were talking before we came on about, how busy we are, and like, I don't know the last time I didn't have a cough, that sort of thing. So like, that's going to happen to teams as well. You're going to have lulls, you're going to have injuries, there's going to be things. And it's just about keeping you as ready as possible as a player, and about coaches managing that as much as possible. And then there might be games down the line where coaches rest players, and that could be London's opportunity there. But yeah, I think that they potentially should get a win at some point. Like you say, they've got it. You can see it sometimes, but it's just stringing that together for a much longer period of time over a game.
Let's move on to the team who got their first win of the season against Leicester, a low-scoring, tight game. Dan Routledge was interested for a while when the scores were really, really low. But yeah, Cardiff getting their first win of the season.
They are, and to quote the oracle that is Dan Routledge, I'd written down some of these things, and I was like, I will make sure I credit him. But that was the third largest swing between losing and winning in consecutive games in the same season. And I think that was all I wrote. Yeah. But and London are the only winless team. So 48 was the second lowest score ever by a winning team.
Oh, nice.
Which is interesting. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know if you noticed as well, and I mentioned this to Steph, but I don't think the audio was on in the pre-game interview yesterday. but Cardiff have gone 48-50, 48-50 in their scores
Nice,
and how
nice.
many points. And I was like, oh, is that a thing? Are you like, okay, girls, today's a 50-point day, so we've got to keep the other team to like 49 if we're going to win. And obviously they didn't quite get to that. They were at 38 yesterday, but I was like, oh, that's a really, I don't know, it was quite appealing on the eye to when I looked up, their previous scores. But no, I think that was a great win for Cardiff. And Cardiff did them. Leicester, though, should have done themselves, if that makes sense. So Cardiff played their game, and Leicester then played to that game, which suited Cardiff, and they managed to grind out the win. So fair play to them. I think Leicester as well. And a bit of a free fall seems a bit of a dramatic word, but it's not something we associate with their programme. You see their programme, especially being at Loughborough, is a very winning programme. I saw an interesting thing on socials, and it was saying, oh, it's double header day. And I was like, amazing, like the girls are getting over to the arena, but it wasn't. It was the Raiders women were playing with the NBL 1 men.
Right.
Whatever way round that was, at the netball, badminton, horse riding, Tiddlywink Centre. So I was just like, oh, that's tough. And I know Emily sort of alluded to there's different things go on and links and whatever else, but I know me as a player, I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder with things of like, I'm a female player, why have I not got the same access to facilities as men? And that was like when I was growing up and the various things that happened with that. Not now, obviously, with the way the Gladiators are set up. Even our local league team gets to play in there, which is awesome. We are bringing local league teams in to play in a facility like that on the practice court. But yeah, I know if I was a rider player, I'd be a bit like, okay, what's this all about? I'm training the same, I'm doing the same. And sometimes even they're doing their masters or PhDs on top of that. So that's just my tuppence worth.
What was it? What did we call this the other week? We need
Rona's rant.
Rona's rant. Yeah, we need a special segment, like a theme song or something.
Or how to make enemies and lose people as opposed to how to win friends. And
Like good cop, bad cop. I'll say lovely things about Leicester. Leicester are a brilliant club.
yeah, but I think sometimes, I don't know, I suppose it's a day I've had, but I'm also like, I think sometimes I do need to be more vocal because I do think these things, and I don't think it should be right. And I think we do need more people speaking up and being like, why is that the way it is? Why is that acceptable? Like, why is it different? Yeah. So there we go. Why?
Yeah, as you say though, that there might be reasons behind it and there might be logistics behind it, but I think that communication from the different teams need to kind of be more open.
Yeah, I think especially when speaking to various people and players, it doesn't seem like they're like, oh no, but it's fine. In whatever place it is or whatever it is they're doing where you notice things, it's not like anyone's from the female side like, oh no, I don't, it's this is why it is. So I think that's why, yeah, I would be like, excuse me. But it's easier to say I'm out the other side, I'm not as dependent, on things like that. Says someone who's played one game ever in the SL, WPBL.
2 points though.
Yeah, I did I did. I got 2 points.
Against Newcastle, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was my short-lived career.
More points than I've ever scored.
Well, that's the thing. 100% from the free throw line. That's what I just tell the kids in school. I was like, oh
Absolutely.
yeah, I played, but 100% that season. I did.
No lies were told.
No.
But that Cardiff Leicester game, obviously going into the fourth quarter, was 28 points, 25, like unheard of low score until they scored 20 each in the last quarter just to ruin everyone's stat party.
But that in itself, it's a wild stat, isn't it? Like that's what you'd associate maybe with schools basketball or like under 14s or 16s, like the finishing. And especially for the Leicester side, they're usually good at finishing, and around the basket. And some of the misses were not like them at all. But I wonder, was they just shaking? As in, it's really hard to score when you're not winning, and it's really easy to score when you are. So I'm always like more interested in who does well when you lose than who does well. Like Danny Williams still put up some great stats and lost at the weekend, and she puts up good stats when they win. So I'm like, to me, I think that's quite interesting to see who is still producing even when the team isn't, because that's to me the sign of a good player, that you can take the team whether you're doing well or whether you're doing poorly.
Well, Leicester were 28% from the field in that game, so yeah, that's possibly why they didn't score more than 45. But where should we go next? Oh, let's from down at the bottom of the table, let's shoot right to the top. Sheffield Hatters are looking good.
They are, and they've had obviously a bit of personnel change, and they've been unfortunate to lose Melita as well due to injury. That sounds like it was pretty awful. So that'll be quite interesting, just checking how they settle in. But I think again with them, it was quite impressive. Gandini, seemed to step up, found her groove, put up some big numbers in their win. I think, yeah, Coach Vanessa Ellis is not new. She's not new to this league. She's not new to basketball. She knows what she wants. I think you see that consistently from her team. She's got Georgia Gale at the point, who's obviously a veteran in the league as well, who knows what she's going to do. And they've built that team well, and it seems to be working for them. And it's just about them, I think, keeping healthy, keeping ticking over, and then continuing to sort of share that ball and stick together. I think they'll be ran close. I think, there will be tough games for them and probably a few losses along the way. But I think, yeah, like you say, they're looking good. And Hatters always do. They always do look good. Like, they're always there or thereabouts. They had their season out, but they've come back fine.
Yeah. They've got three games before Christmas. Durham on Saturday, so I'll get to see them firsthand. And then Auckland's Caledonia before Christmas. I think it's Caledonia first, then Auckland's. Again, two really big games up that top end of the table for Sheffield.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. So the one on the 8th, is that the trophy?
Yeah, sorry, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
So that's a really big game.
Yeah, huge.
The 8th of December. So for both teams, I think that'll be interesting because it adds in a layer of like extra pressure potentially, or extra excitement, depending how you want to look at it. Because that's you then booking your ticket, isn't it, into the final. So I think that'll be a really good and interesting matchup. Obviously, Sheffield at the moment have the upper hand. It'll be interesting to see the run of games leading into it, where teams are coming into it, both of them. Auckland's as well then the following week. That will be another good test for them. I'll be interested to see those two match up against each other. Sort of a different dynamic between the two teams. Slightly different coaching styles. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good wee run of basketball, to be honest.
Yeah, but the Betty Cardona Trophy, as we've talked about there. So 7th is Auckland's and Essex. 8th Caledonia Sheffield. So that Auckland Essex game, Essex are a funny side this year. I can't quite put my finger on them.
Yeah, I think they are. I think that's kind of how they tend to be. They can blow hot or cold, and when they blow hot, they're roasting. And when it's cold, it's a bit damp. But I also think a lot of it's coming down to Taylor O'Brien, where she's at on the day, how well she's playing. But I saw they had some really good movement going on, and even without having to use her necessarily to do all the scoring, because teams will scout that and then they'll work out how to deal with that. They've still got various threats across the floor. So I think, it will just be how they deal with the travelling, because they're another team that has a decent bit of travel at times, and just their schedule and how they're managing players, rotating players around, that sort of aspect to it for them.
They've got Auckland's at home on Saturday. It's again another tough game. They don't get much easier.
No, but I think it could be quite interesting, like the athleticism on both sides of the floor and just how they run the ball. Shanice and Taylor potentially going against each other. I think that'll be quite interesting because Shanice has got the athleticism. Taylor's, got a decent skill level, ability to shoot and find ways to score. Auckland's maybe sort of the wing into the inside more to contend with. But then you've got someone like Claire Paxton, who does well coming in and off the bench, who's got that height but likes to shoot the three ball. I think there'll be some interesting matchups across the court. And I could see both teams taking the win. I know that makes me sound like I'm sitting on the fence, but I could see a justification for both teams taking a win there.
Okay, and again, kind of one of the clubs kind of battling now for that the end of the playoff spots really, but Nottingham Wildcats, their big win over London last week, was 40 points this earlier. Claire Jacobs 35 points. I mean, big numbers from her.
Yeah, I mean, none too shabby, was it? All-Star 5 for a reason. But I think for them as well, coming off the sort of 27-point loss the previous week to Gladiators, they'd be looking to bounce back from that and go and prove to themselves that actually they can produce more than that. They just kind of got a bit stuck against the Gladiators, and the Gladiators did really well in pressuring, on the defensive end. But yeah, good win for them to bounce back from. But then they now need to carry it a bit like the Eagles, carry it into their next game and look to sort of reproduce that, do what works for them, and have learned. Like every time these younger guards and players are coming up against the more experienced ones, it's what they're taking from that learning and pushing on from that. I feel like that was a big part of the Gladiators win on Sunday, was they'd played Montpellier on Wednesday and I'd been down at the actual game. And I'd watched it when I got home as well. And what it looks like on the TV, it's like anything. It didn't look half as physical or as athletic as when you were in there. Like you looked at these Montpellier girls across the court and they were athletes. They were big. They were like thick. They were built. And I'm like, how do you get muscles like that? It says me eating my popcorn. You'll notice there's a running theme between me like commenting on things going on and me sitting eating. So, but then I think what the Gladiators have done, they've taken what happened in those games, when maybe they were getting the ball stripped or they were struggling to score because you're going up against somebody who's able to jump, or you feel like they're going to come in and block you, that sort of thing, or when you're having to set a really good pick to even like make them slow down. They've then taken that into the Cardiff game, so instead of going, it's Cardiff, they've gone, no, we're coming in here. So I think like that with these other teams and battling out, they need to take off the losses, that sort of sometimes better caliber of player, but then transfer that into their next game, like the learning that they've done. Like what is it they always say? You learn more in losing than you do in winning. But yeah, so I think lots to learn and to carry over.
One team left, I think, and that's Durham.
Mm-hmm.
And I know early on in the season, trophy games that they lost, I said a couple of times, I've been very impressed with the way they've battled and the way they've been very competitive in games. And that win against Essex just kind of typifies that, even missing Sarah Wells. And say Harriet Otwell-Salisbury's an important player to have back in that rotation. But yeah, big win.
It was. And what is the insider chat in Sarah Wells? Are we going to be seeing her back again? Or
I actually don't know. Like, I'm not even just lying. I actually don't know.
You keep protecting your sources. It's fine.
She's been there at all the games, but I haven't been told any time scale. Hopefully it's soon though, because
that's all you told me before this. Before this, you were like, Rona, wait till I tell you about Sarah.
Shocking.
No, I do. And I think I watched the game and I thought that Durham looked in control of the game for the most part. I thought Essex looked like they were chasing it. Durham were finding ways to score, and even if Essex were getting the steal or turning over Durham, they weren't quite being able to execute at the other end. And I think sometimes they're maybe too reliant on that outside three shot instead of trying to get the ball in. But Durham kind of pretty much stuck with that 6-player rotation, which can have its advantages, because players know that they're staying on the floor, they know they're going to be getting decent court time. If you miss a couple of shots, you can still shoot yourself into it. You're not feeling like, I'm going to get pulled out, whereas other teams with bigger rosters, there's somebody there to come and just replace you all the time. And like you say, Shanique Lucas, 23, 7, 8 and 7, 35 minutes, an index of 36. I mean, that's a pretty good outing, if I'm honest.
That's a good stat sheet. That I like
yeah.
that. I like that.
So, and also, although Rebels did take the first quarter and we're up at the half, I just feel like, Durham just found a way to keep going. And even though they weren't up at the half, Durham, I do still feel like it wasn't like they were chasing the game at all. It was just like they were sticking to their plan. They were getting there. They were there or thereabouts. And then obviously they blew it apart in that fourth quarter.
Helps with Eliza Brow scoring 18 points as well, like from the bench and coming to really contribute. Makes a difference.
It does.
Right, have we missed anything? I'm trying to think I think we've kind of tied it all together quite nicely there. I mean, the weekend's games look pretty good, as we've talked about them as we're going through, but that Manchester Caledonia game, Essex Auckland is another one that we said. Well, you said I'm stepping away from this. You said could go either way.
I feel like no, I said no. I feel like you could see why. If I was to put my money, my hat on the line, I'd say it's going to be an Oakland's win.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that Essex could be a bit of a bogey team, and they have been in previous seasons, where results have came where you wouldn't quite have expected them. So just to clarify, there we go.
I'm just trying to get some headlines.
Yeah. Some clickbait right there.
Another game actually that could be really interesting is the Nottingham Leicester game.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that is. If you'd asked me to begin the season, I probably wouldn't have been as, oh yeah, that would be a really good game. But I think at the moment, or maybe that's the game I should say could go either way. Already used it. But I mean, I would back. You've got Jesse for Yates, sort of in that point guard position. But I do think Nottingham could have enough to get it over the line. Depends again how I keep saying bounce back. I hate that. But it depends how the Riders bounce back. And obviously after a string of results. Again, looking at the Riders roster, you've got people, an old teammate of mine, I say old, but she's really young. I'm old. Emma Dunsire, who's now down at Loughborough, has been for several seasons and sometimes would be on the bench last season and getting the odd minutes here and there, whereas sometimes she's pushing into double minutes. You know, there's been a few players like that being brought up from the Riders programme, whereas we've maybe not always seen that in past seasons. So I think, you know, they're doing maybe a bit of building there as well. Again, we don't really know what's going on. Nottingham as well can be fairly young across the court. So yeah, could be interesting.
Yeah, there'll be a few teams wanting to snap losing streaks and kind of put down a marker maybe this weekend. So yeah, all to play for. But it's been a pleasure, Rona, as always.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you were able to, before anything else.
I know, like start afresh for the next one. Like, let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Just keep us on our toes.
I need a lie down.
Christmas is coming. They might give us some nice presents. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for following our podcast and make sure you subscribe and put some likes on this. Tell us what you think about the matches the last few weeks. Tell us what you think about the teams and how they've settled into the season. But yeah, that's all from us and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.